I used to think people who felt watched were just anxious. I used to hear friends talk about weird things happening and I'd nod and say, "That's creepy," then forget about it the next day. I worked. I went out. I paid rent. I tried not to think too hard about anything. Then the first note showed up. It was folded once and tucked under my windshield wiper. I saw it when I came out of the grocery store with a bag of apples and cheap pasta. It didn't have my name on it. It didn't say anything dramatic. It just said, "You missed a spot on your left cheek." I read it twice, then looked up like I expected someone to be standing there smiling. Nobody was. A couple was loading groceries into the trunk of a car. A kid was whining near the cart return. It was normal. I touched my face without thinking. There was nothing there. Maybe I'd wiped my mouth with a napkin and left a smear. Maybe it was a stupid prank. I crumpled the note and tossed it in a trash can by the cart return. I drove home. I told myself it was nothing. That night, I went to the bathroom before bed and looked in the mirror. My cheek looked clean. I leaned closer, turning my head, checking under the bright light like I was hunting for some mark. Nothing. I felt a little silly. I also felt a little angry, like someone had reached into my life and pulled a string to see what I'd do. The next morning, there was another note. It was taped to my door, right above the peephole. It was the same plain paper, the same neat handwriting. You sleep on your right side. Your arm goes numb. I stared at it for a long time. I do sleep on my right side. Sometimes my arm does go numb. I'm not a heavy sleeper, but I'm not the kind of person who thinks about how I sleep. I just sleep. I looked around the hallway. The building was quiet. 2 doors down, someone had a welcome mat with a cartoon cat on it. Somewhere, a radio was playing. I pulled the note off the door and went back inside, locking it behind me. I told myself it had to be someone in the building, a neighbor, someone with a grudge, someone who'd heard me complain about my arm. That didn't make sense, but I needed a reason that wasn't the one creeping into the back of my mind. I had a small apartment on the 2nd floor, 1 bedroom, a narrow kitchen, a living room with a window that looked over the parking lot. I kept the blinds half open during the day because I liked the light. It never occurred to me that light works both ways. I was supposed to be at work in an hour. I stood by the window and stared at the parking lot, waiting to see someone staring back. A man walked by carrying a laundry basket. He didn't look up. I checked the locks again. I checked the window latches. I checked under the bed, which is something I'd never done in my life. I laughed once, a short sound that didn't make me feel better. At work, I tried to act normal. I'm a receptionist at a dental office. It's not glamorous, but it pays. I answer phones, schedule appointments, deal with insurance, smile at people who are already tense. Most days, the hardest part is not getting bored. That day, I couldn't focus. Every time the door opened, my stomach tightened. We had a patient, an older woman who came in for a cleaning. She chatted with me about her grandkids. I nodded and smiled and barely heard her. I kept thinking about the note on my door. Around midday, I went outside to eat my lunch in my car. I didn't want to sit in the break room with the hygienists talking about their diets. I wanted to be alone. When I opened my car door, there was a paper bag on the driver's seat. I froze with one hand on the door and one foot on the pavement. The bag was small and folded at the top like someone had packed a sandwich. It looked clean. There was another note taped to it. For later. You forget to eat when you're upset. I didn't get in the car. I stood there staring until a coworker walked out and asked if I was okay. I forced a smile and said I'd dropped something. I picked up the bag with 2 fingers like it might bite me and carried it inside. I went straight to the bathroom, locked the door, and opened the bag. Inside was a simple sandwich, turkey and cheese, cut in half. There was also a small apple, the kind we keep in a bowl at the front desk. I didn't know if it came from our bowl or somewhere else. I didn't eat it. I threw the whole bag into the trash, then washed my hands until my skin felt raw. When I came out, I felt like everyone could see something was wrong. Nobody looked at me twice. People were busy with their own lives. That afternoon, I called my landlord and asked if there were cameras in the hallway. He laughed and said no, this wasn't a fancy place. I asked if anyone had reported problems, and he said no. He asked if I was late on rent. I said no. He told me to stop worrying. I thought about calling the police. What would I say? Someone left me a sandwich. Someone wrote notes. No threats, no break-in. They'd tell me to keep the notes and call back if something happened. So I kept them. That night, I sat on my couch with the blinds closed and the lights off, listening to the building sounds. Footsteps in the hall, pipes, someone's TV, normal things that suddenly felt like signals. My phone buzzed with a message from my friend Lauren. Want to grab drinks tonight? I typed back, can't. Weird day. She called me right away. What happened? I told her about the notes. I tried to make it sound smaller than it felt. I laughed in the wrong places. I said maybe it was a neighbor with too much time. Lauren didn't laugh. That's not funny, she said. That's someone watching you. I know. Call the cops. They won't do anything. Then come stay with me. I almost said yes. Then I pictured packing a bag and leaving my apartment like I was admitting defeat. I pictured showing up at her place and sounding dramatic. I told her I'd be fine. She was quiet for a second, then said, "If you don't call the cops, at least tell your landlord you want a new lock, or a camera. Something. I'll do it tomorrow. Promise me." I promise. After we hung up, I checked my phone settings, my apps, my location sharing, all of it. I didn't find anything strange. I turned off location services anyway. I slept badly. Every time I drifted off, I woke up with a jolt, listening. In the morning, my blinds were open. I know I'd closed them. I was sure of it. I'd pulled the cord until the slats pressed shut. Now they were tilted open, letting in a thin stripe of sunrise. I stood there staring at them. My hands shook as I closed them again. On my coffee table was a note. I didn't have to pick it up to know it was his. The same paper. The same handwriting. You don't lock the balcony door all the way. My balcony was small, just enough space for a plastic chair and a dying plant. The door had a sliding lock that sometimes didn't catch unless you lifted it. I knew that. I'd meant to fix it. I walked to the balcony and checked. The door was locked. But my chest felt tight because the note wasn't taped outside. It was inside. Someone had been in my apartment. I backed away like the air itself was dangerous. I grabbed my phone and called the police. 2 officers came. They were polite but not urgent. They looked around, checked the balcony door, checked the locks, asked if anything was missing. "Nothing," I said. "I don't think so." They asked about the notes. I showed them the ones I'd kept, the crumpled one I'd dug out of the trash, the one from my door, the one from my car. One officer glanced at them and nodded like he'd seen this before. "Could be a neighbor messing with you," he said. "He was inside," I said. "Or she. Someone was inside." "We don't have proof of that," he said. "The blinds were open and there's a note on my table." He looked at the blinds. He looked at the note. "Did you touch the note?" "Yes." He sighed. "Okay. We can take a report. We can ask around. But if there's no damage and nothing stolen, it's hard." I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to say, "What about the fact that someone thinks they can come into my home and leave a message like they own the place?" Instead, I nodded. I let them write their report. I gave them my information. They told me to call again if I saw someone, or if anything escalated. That word stuck in my head. Escalated. After they left, I called my landlord again. This time I didn't ask politely. I told him someone had gotten into my apartment. I told him the police had been there. I told him I needed the balcony lock fixed and a new deadbolt. He complained, but he agreed to send someone. I took the day off work. I didn't want to leave the apartment. I didn't want to be there either. I sat at my kitchen table with a knife within reach, which is ridiculous. A kitchen knife is not a weapon in the way people imagine. It's a thing you use to cut food. Holding it didn't make me feel safe, but letting it out of sight made me feel worse. I checked my closets, my shower, behind the curtains. I knew he wasn't there, but I still checked. I kept thinking about the blinds being open. That meant he'd been standing right where I stood now, in my living room, looking out. He'd been close enough to touch my furniture, close enough to smell my shampoo, to read the mail on my counter, to see the photos on my fridge. That's what made me feel sick. Not the idea of being killed, not yet. The idea of someone entering the private parts of my life and treating them like entertainment. The repair guy came in the afternoon. He was an older man with a tool belt and a bored expression. He fixed the balcony lock, installed a deadbolt, and told me to make sure the door was aligned. When he left, I locked the door and slid the chain. I knew locks were only barriers, not guarantees, but it was something. That evening, Lauren came over. She brought wine and pizza and pepper spray. "I got you the spray," she said, holding it up like a keychain. "I don't know how to use it," I said. "Point and spray," she said, "and then run." We ate on my couch. We talked about normal things at first, but it kept drifting back. "Do you have any enemies?" she asked. "No." "Anyone from work?" "I don't think so." "Exes?" I shook my head. "It's been a while since I dated anyone seriously." She frowned. "That doesn't mean anything." "I know." We sat in silence for a bit. "If it was a neighbor," she said, How would they know you sleep on your right side? I swallowed. They could have seen me through the window. You don't sleep in the living room. No. Then they were in your bedroom. I didn't answer. Lauren stayed late. She offered to sleep over, but I told her I'd be okay. She didn't look convinced. When she left, she made me promise again to call her if anything happened. After she went, I checked the locks, checked the windows, checked the balcony door. Then I sat in my bed with the light on and read on my phone until my eyes burned. I drifted off in the early hours and woke up to a sound that didn't belong. A soft scrape. I held my breath. Another scrape, closer this time. My first thought was the balcony door. My second thought was that it didn't matter which door it was. Something was trying to get in. I grabbed my phone and the pepper spray Lauren had left on my nightstand. My hands were wet with sweat. The scrape stopped. I lay there, barely breathing, listening. Then I heard it. A quiet laugh. Not loud, not theatrical, just a small sound, like someone amused by their own joke. It came from inside my apartment. I sat up, the blanket sliding off my legs. The room was dim. The streetlight outside cast thin lines through the blinds. There was a shadow at my bedroom door. I couldn't see a face, just the outline of someone standing in the doorway. My throat closed. I tried to scream and nothing came out. The figure didn't move. He just stood there. In my head, everything rushed at once. Run, spray, call, hide. But my body felt heavy. Then the figure stepped back and the shadow disappeared. I heard the soft click of the front door. I lunged out of bed, pepper spray in hand, and ran to the living room. The front door was closed. The chain was still on. The deadbolt was locked. I stood there shaking, staring at the door like it might open again. There was a note tucked into the chain. I didn't notice it at first because my eyes kept jumping to the peephole, the handle, the lock. When I did see it, my stomach turned. It said, "Better lock that chain all the way." I didn't sleep after that. In the morning, I called the police again. This time, they took it more seriously because I said I saw someone inside. They came back. They checked for forced entry. They didn't find any. "How did he get in?" I asked. "Could have had a key," one officer said. "A key? Who has a key?" "Landlord, maintenance, previous tenants," he said. My landlord denied giving anyone a key. The officer told me to change the locks anyway. I paid out of pocket to have a locksmith come that day. I watched him install a new lock like my life depended on it. When he finished, I stood in the doorway, feeling both relieved and stupid. A lock is a piece of metal. It doesn't stop a person who's determined. For a few days, nothing happened. No notes, no strange sounds. I went to work, tried to focus, tried to act normal. I told myself maybe the lock change scared him off. Then the email came. It hit my inbox at work. No subject line. Just a blank email with an attachment. A photo. It was a photo of me. I was sitting at my desk at the dental office, looking down at the computer. The angle was from the waiting room, like someone had stood near the door and taken it. You could see the edge of the counter, the office logo on the wall behind me. I stared at it until my vision blurred. Then I noticed the small detail that made me feel cold. On the counter near my hand was the apple from our bowl. I could see it because it was in the photo. I looked up at the bowl. There were apples in it, like always. They all looked the same. But the one in the photo had a small bruise near the stem. I picked up an apple from the bowl. It had the bruise. My mouth went dry. He'd been here. I forwarded the email to my personal account, then deleted it from my work inbox. I didn't know why I deleted it. Maybe I didn't want my boss to see. Maybe I didn't want anyone else involved. That instinct to hide shame even when you've done nothing wrong. I went to my boss, Dr. Patel, and told him someone was stalking me. He looked shocked. He asked questions in a careful way, like he didn't want to scare me more. "Do you think it's someone here?" he asked. "I don't know," I said. He told me I could take time off. I said I didn't want to. Sitting alone in my apartment felt worse. He offered to have someone walk me to my car. I agreed. That day, my coworker Jenna walked me out after we closed. We talked about nothing, just making noise. When I got to my car, my heart sank. There was a small scratch on the driver's side door, near the handle. At first I thought it was nothing. Then I saw what it was. A shallow carving, like someone had used a key. It was a line that curved into a shape. A smile. Not a cartoon smile. Not a big grin. Just a simple curve, like a child drawing a happy face. Jenna stared at it. "What is that?" she whispered. I didn't answer. I got in the car and locked the doors. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely start the engine. At home, I didn't go inside right away. I sat in my car with the engine off, staring at my building. The windows looked dark. The parking lot light buzzed. I called Lauren. "I think he's coming to my work," I said. Lauren swore. "I'm coming over." "No," I said. "Don't. I don't want him to follow you." "He already knows you have friends," she said. "He's not going to stop because you're alone." She was right, but I still felt guilty. I felt like this thing was attached to me, and anyone who got close would get it too. Lauren came anyway. She brought her boyfriend, Mark. Mark was bigger than both of us, the kind of guy who lifts weights and wears plain clothes. He didn't look like a hero. He looked like someone who could hold his own. We sat in my living room with the lights on. Mark walked around checking windows like he knew what he was doing. "He can't just get in," he said, jiggling the balcony lock. "Not without breaking something." "He got in before," I said. Mark frowned. "Then he had a key." "Or he picked the lock," Lauren said. Mark shrugged. "Could be. But most people don't." "Most people don't do this at all," I snapped. He looked at me. "Yeah, you're right." Mark said we should set up a camera. Lauren pulled out her phone and ordered a small one online, the kind that sticks to a shelf. It would arrive in a couple of days. Until then, Mark offered to stay the night. I said no at first, then changed my mind. We set up camp in my living room. Lauren took the couch. Mark slept in a chair. I tried to sleep in my bed, but I couldn't relax. At some point I must have drifted off because I woke to a muffled sound, a thump. I sat up. My heart pounded. Another thump. It was coming from the hallway outside. I slid out of bed and crept to the door. The peephole showed nothing but the dim hallway light. Then I heard a voice, not loud, not angry, just calm. "Open it." I froze. Another voice, Mark's, from behind me. "What is it?" I turned, shaking. "Someone's out there." Mark moved past me and looked through the peephole. He stiffened. "What?" Lauren whispered, now awake. Mark didn't answer. He unlatched the chain. "No," I hissed. "Don't." He held up a hand. "I just want to see who it is." He cracked the door open. I couldn't see the hallway from where I stood, just the edge of the door, the chain slack. Mark leaned forward. There was a sudden movement. A hand shot into the gap. Mark jerked back, but not fast enough. The hand grabbed the edge of the door and yanked. The chain snapped. The door flew open. I screamed. A man stepped inside. He wore a dark hoodie and a plain mask, the kind you could buy at any hardware store. Not a monster mask, just a white face with eye holes. It looked blank and ordinary, which made it worse. Mark lunged at him. The man moved like he'd practiced. He drove something into Mark's side. I didn't see what it was at first. Mark made a sharp sound, not a scream, more like a grunt that turned into a gasp. Lauren yelled and grabbed a lamp, swinging it. The man dodged and shoved her hard. She hit the wall and slid down. Mark stumbled back, hands pressed to his side. Blood soaked through his shirt. I lifted the pepper spray and sprayed. The man turned his head just enough that most of it missed. The spray hit his cheek and neck. He hissed and stepped back. Mark grabbed him, using his weight to slam the man against the wall. For a second, I thought Mark would win. Then the man twisted and drove his weapon again, higher this time. Mark's body went stiff. He let out a wet breath and fell. Lauren screamed his name. The man looked at me. Even through the mask, I could feel his focus, like a hand closing around my throat. He took a step toward me. I ran. I bolted into the bedroom and slammed the door. I shoved my dresser in front of it, adrenaline making it feel lighter than it should. I dialed 911 with shaking fingers. The operator answered. I tried to speak and my voice came out broken. "There's someone in my apartment," I said. "He hurt my friend." The operator asked for my address. I gave it. I heard a crash in the living room. The operator told me to stay on the line. I pressed my ear to the bedroom door. I could hear Lauren crying. I could hear heavy breathing. I could hear footsteps. Then a soft tap on the bedroom door. Not 3 taps. Not a pattern. Just one. "Come out," the man said. His voice was calm, almost bored. I backed away from the door, phone pressed to my ear. The operator was telling me officers were on the way. I looked around the room, desperate. The window. I ran to it and yanked it open. Cold air hit my face. My bedroom window overlooked the back of the building, with a strip of grass and a chain-link fence. I climbed out. My foot slipped and scraped against the sill. I dropped onto the grass hard, pain shooting up my ankle. I ran anyway. I didn't know where I was going. I just ran. Phone still connected. The operator's voice faint in my ear. Behind me, I heard the bedroom window slam open. I didn't look back. I ran around the building toward the street. My lungs burned. My ankle throbbed. A car drove by. I waved my arms and screamed. The car didn't stop. I reached the sidewalk and kept running. The operator was asking if I could see the suspect. I don't know, I gasped. I'm outside. I'm running. Find a safe place, she said. Safe place. Like there was one. I ran to the closest building with lights on, a small convenience store on the corner. I burst inside, nearly slipping on the floor. The clerk looked up, startled. Call the police, I said. Someone's trying to kill me. I'm on the phone with them, I said into my phone, then realized how crazy I sounded. The clerk grabbed his own phone anyway. I hid behind the counter. My whole body shook. The door chimed when someone entered. I held my breath. It was a woman buying cigarettes. She looked at me crouched behind the counter and frowned. The clerk told her to leave. She muttered something and walked out. I stayed crouched there until I heard sirens. Police arrived in minutes, but it felt like hours. They questioned me, took me back to my building. The hallway was full of flashing lights. Neighbors stood in doorways, faces pale. Inside my apartment, there was blood on the floor. Mark was lying on his back, eyes open but empty. Lauren sat on the floor against the wall, shaking, her face streaked with tears. She had a bruise forming on her cheek. When she saw me, she reached out like she couldn't believe I was real. He's gone, she sobbed. He ran when he heard the sirens. He was so calm. I didn't go near Mark's body. I couldn't. I stood in the doorway, staring, trying to understand how fast a life can end. The police searched the building, the area, but they didn't find him. They took Mark away in a black bag. Lauren went to the hospital. The police took her statement. I sat on the curb outside with a blanket around my shoulders, watching them move in and out of my building. A detective came to talk to me. She was a woman in her 40s with tired eyes. Do you know who did this? She asked. No, I whispered. She asked about exes, co-workers, neighbors, anyone who might want to hurt me. No, I kept saying. She asked about the notes. I told her everything. I handed over the notes I'd kept. She looked at them carefully. This is targeted, she said. He's invested. I stared at her. He killed someone, I said. She nodded. Yes. And you're telling me he's invested? Her mouth tightened. I'm telling you he's not going away on his own. They offered to move me to a hotel for a few nights. They said they'd increase patrols. They said they'd look for him. I agreed to the hotel because my apartment was a crime scene anyway. Lauren stayed with her sister. She kept texting me, checking in, asking if I was okay. I didn't know how to answer. How do you say you're not okay without making it feel like you're demanding comfort? The hotel room felt like a box. I kept the lights on all night. I jumped at every sound in the hallway. On the second night, someone slid something under my door. I stared at it for a long time before picking it up. It was another note. You ran when you should have stayed. My hands went numb. I called the detective. She told me to keep the note, not touch it if possible, and to tell hotel security. Security came, looked concerned, then looked helpless. The detective told me they hadn't released my hotel location to anyone, so he found it himself. That was the moment I stopped thinking of him as a person in my building. He was outside my life in a way I couldn't control. He could follow me anywhere. The next day I quit my job. Dr. Patel looked sad, but he didn't argue. He told me to take care of myself. Jenna hugged me and cried. I felt like I was leaving them with a mess they didn't ask for. I packed a bag and went to Lauren's sister's house where Lauren was staying. Her sister, Amy, lived in a small townhouse with her husband and 2 kids. It was cramped and loud and full of life. It felt safer than the hotel. Lauren hugged me hard. Her eyes were red. I'm sorry, I said. Don't, she snapped. Don't say that. This isn't your fault. But it felt like it was attached to me like a shadow. The police told us to be careful, to lock doors, to not go out alone. They told us things people always say after something happens. For a couple of days, nothing happened. No notes, no emails. I started to think maybe he'd gotten what he wanted. Maybe he'd wanted to scare me, to show me he could hurt people around me. Maybe he'd move on. Then Amy's husband, Carlos, didn't come home from work. Carlos worked late shifts at a warehouse. He was the kind of guy who kept his head down, came home tired, played with his kids, went to bed. I didn't know him well, but he'd been kind to me, offering food, making jokes to break the tension. That night we waited. Amy kept checking her phone. Lauren paced. Carlos finally called. His voice was strange, tight. I'm okay, he said. I'm at the hospital. Amy started crying before he even explained. A coworker had found Carlos in the parking lot after his shift. Someone had attacked him from behind. Carlos had fought back, enough to survive, but he was hurt badly. When we got to the hospital, he was pale and shaking. His arm was bandaged. He had bruises on his face. They didn't take anything, he said. They just wanted to hurt me. He looked at me when he said it, like he didn't want to blame me but couldn't ignore the pattern. A nurse told us he was lucky. If the blow had landed differently, if his coworker hadn't come out when he did, he wouldn't be there. I felt like I was watching my life infect other people. The detective came to the hospital. She asked Carlos what the attacker looked like. I didn't see his face, Carlos said. He had something on, a mask maybe. He didn't talk. He just kept hitting. The detective looked at me. Any new contact? She asked. I shook my head. I wanted to tell her it felt like he was sending messages through people's bodies. I wanted to say he was taking pieces out of my world and leaving gaps. But I didn't have words that didn't sound dramatic. After that, Amy's house didn't feel safe anymore. If he could attack Carlos at work, he could show up anywhere. The police offered protective measures that sounded good on paper, but didn't change reality. More patrols, more attention, advice to vary routines. How do you vary routines when you're hiding? Lauren begged me to leave town. Go somewhere far, she said. Go to your mom's. Go to another city. Change your name. Something. My mom lived 3 states away. We weren't close, but we talked occasionally. I could go there. The thought made me feel like a child running home. Still, I agreed. Not because I wanted to, but because staying felt like waiting to see who he would hurt next. We left early in the morning. Lauren drove. She insisted. I sat in the passenger seat, staring at every car behind us. My body was tense the whole ride. We didn't take the highway the whole way. We switched roads. We stopped in crowded places. We watched for anyone following. By the time we reached my mom's town, I was exhausted. My mom lived in a small house on a quiet street. She opened the door and looked at me like she was seeing a stranger. What happened? She asked. I told her. I left out details at first, but the truth spilled out anyway. Her face went pale when I mentioned Mark. Oh my God, she whispered. She pulled me into a hug that felt awkward at first, then steady. You're staying here, she said. We're locking everything. We're calling the police here too. We did. Local officers came, listened, took notes. They were sympathetic but distant, like this was a story from somewhere else. Lauren stayed one night and then went back. She had a job, a life. She couldn't live in my mom's spare room forever. Before she left, she hugged me so hard it hurt. Call me all the time, she said. Don't disappear. I won't, I promised. After she left, I felt empty. My mom tried to make the house normal. She cooked dinners, asked about my day, offered to watch shows together. But I wasn't normal. I couldn't relax. Every sound outside made me tense. For a while, nothing happened. No notes, no emails. I started to believe leaving had worked. Then I got a letter in the mail. It was in a plain envelope with no return address. My name was written neatly. Inside was a single piece of paper. I like this house. The kitchen window is a little crooked. I dropped the paper like it was hot. My mom saw my face and grabbed it. Her hands shook as she read. We're calling the police, she said. We did. They came, took the letter, asked questions. How would someone know you're here? One officer asked. I wanted to laugh. He always knows, I said. They asked if anyone else knew I was there. I told them only Lauren and Amy and the detective back home. Could be someone you know, the officer said. I looked at him. You think Lauren is doing this? He held up his hands. No, I'm saying it's often someone in your circle. My circle had become a list of people he'd already hurt. That night, my mom and I barely slept. We checked locks. We put a chair under the back door handle. We kept lights on. In the middle of the night, I heard something outside. A low sound, like someone moving through bushes. I crept to the window and peeked through the curtain. At first, I saw nothing. Then a shape moved near the side of the house. Someone was standing by the kitchen window. I couldn't see his face, just the outline of a hood. I backed away, heart hammering. My mom appeared behind me. "What is it?" she whispered. "He's outside," I said. My mom grabbed her phone and dialed 911. I watched through the curtain again. The figure lifted a hand and pressed something against the glass. A smile shape drawn with something dark. Then he stepped back and disappeared into the dark. The police arrived and searched the yard. They found footprints near the window, faint impressions in the damp soil. They didn't find him. The next morning, my mom insisted we leave the house and go to a motel out of town. She didn't trust the quiet street anymore. She didn't want to be trapped in a place with bushes and blind spots. We packed quickly and drove to a motel near the highway. I felt like I was dragging my mom into my nightmare. She tried to stay calm, but I could see fear in her eyes. In the motel, I sat on the bed and stared at the wall. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "I can see you through the window. The lampshade is tilted." I threw my phone onto the bed like it was contaminated. My mom stared at it. "How is he doing this?" she whispered. I didn't know. The police were involved in 2 states now. Detectives talked on the phone. They asked us to stay put. They asked us to provide every message, every note. They also asked something that made my stomach twist. Did anyone record him? We didn't. The camera Lauren ordered had never arrived before I fled. We'd left my apartment a mess. We'd thought we were buying time. We'd just moved the game. I stopped eating. I stopped showering regularly. I jumped at knocks on the motel door, even when it was housekeeping. My mom tried to get me to drink water. She tried to keep me grounded. "You can't let him take your mind," she said. He already had. The detective from my old city called one evening. "We got something," she said. My heart leapt and sank at the same time. "A man was arrested for breaking into a storage unit nearby," she said. "He had a set of keys, multiple apartment keys, some personal items." "Is it him?" I asked. "We don't know yet," she said. "We're investigating. We're comparing handwriting. We're checking his phone." I wanted to believe it. I wanted to feel relief, but I didn't let myself. 2 days later, the detective called again. "It's not him," she said. The disappointment hit like a physical blow. "He's still out there," she said. "But keep sending everything. We're building a case." A case. Like paper could stop him. That night, my mom went to the motel vending machine while I stayed in the room. She insisted on doing small tasks, like she needed proof she still had control. She was gone longer than expected. I checked the hallway through the peephole. No one. Minutes passed. My phone buzzed. Unknown number again. "Your mom shouldn't walk alone." My blood turned cold. I rushed into the hallway. I ran toward the vending area, my bare feet slapping the carpet. The hallway turned a corner. I saw the glowing vending machines. And my mom. She was on the floor. Her body was twisted in a way that didn't look right. Her eyes were open. Her mouth was slightly parted. I stopped moving because my brain couldn't accept it. Then I saw the dark stain spreading beneath her head. I made a sound that wasn't a word. I fell to my knees beside her. Her skin was already cooling. I shook her shoulders, begging her to breathe, to move, to do anything. She didn't. There was a note tucked under her hand. I didn't want to look at it, but my eyes found it anyway. "You should have stayed," I screamed. The sound echoed down the hallway. Doors opened. Someone yelled. Someone called 911. I sat on the floor with my mom's head in my lap, rocking, even though it was too late. When the police arrived, they pulled me away. They asked questions. They took my statement. They looked for cameras. The motel had cameras, but the coverage was bad. The detective later told me the person had kept his face turned away. He moved through blind spots. He left without being clearly identified. He killed my mother because he could. Because he wanted to show me there was nowhere I could run. After that, I stopped pretending I could solve this by hiding. I went back to my old city. The detective tried to talk me out of it. Lauren begged me not to. "He'll find you wherever you go," I told her. "But maybe I can set something up where he thinks I'm alone." Lauren's face tightened. "You can't do that. You're not bait." "I'm already bait," I said. I didn't tell the police what I planned at first, because I didn't know exactly. I just knew I couldn't keep letting him pick people off. The police were working the case, but they were always behind him. He chose the place and time. He watched. He waited. They reacted. I moved into a small apartment in a different part of the city, one the police knew about. They helped arrange it quietly, through a program that sometimes helped victims relocate. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. The building had cameras. The unit had better locks. The street outside was busier. I told myself it would help, but I also knew he could still get close. I set rules for myself. No walking alone at night. No routines. No posting online. I stopped using social media. I stopped using my old email. I changed my phone number. For a while it worked. No notes, no emails. Lauren and I spoke on the phone often. She was grieving Mark and still trying to support me. Sometimes she'd start crying in the middle of a sentence and apologize. I hated that I was making her relive it. Carlos recovered slowly. Amy stopped returning my calls. I understood. The detective kept checking in. She told me they had suspects, leads, partial fingerprints, maybe DNA from the blood on Mark's shirt. Maybe. Weeks passed. Then, one morning, I found a small package at my door. No label, no stamp. Just a box. I didn't touch it. I called the detective. They sent someone to collect it. Inside was a single item. A key. It was my old apartment key. The one I'd given back when I moved out. Along with it was a note. "You can't change locks forever." The detective's voice on the phone was tight. "We're taking this seriously," she said. "We're increasing surveillance." "Surveillance doesn't bring people back," I said. I didn't mean it as an attack, but it came out harsh. She was quiet. "I know," she said. That night I sat in my new apartment and stared at the door. I had a camera inside, pointed at the entry. I had another facing the balcony. I had a small alarm that would beep if the door opened. I had a baseball bat by my bed. I knew none of it was enough. I started to think about what he wanted. He didn't want money. He didn't want sex. He didn't want to kidnap me and keep me somewhere. If he did, he could have tried already. He wanted control. He wanted me to feel like every part of my life belonged to him. So I decided to break the pattern. I told the detective I was going to do something reckless. I told her I was tired of waiting. She asked what. "I'm going to make him come to me," I said. She didn't like it, but she listened. We worked out a plan that was half police operation, half desperation. They would place officers in my building, in unmarked positions. They would monitor my cameras. They would watch the entrances. I would act like I was alone. It made me sick to agree to it, like I was inviting danger. But I also felt something else. Anger. Not the shaky anger I'd felt at the start. A heavy, solid anger. He had taken too much. The night we chose was cold and damp, the kind of night where sounds carry. I turned off the obvious lights. I left one lamp on in the living room. I moved around in view of the window so anyone watching could see me. I made tea. I sat on the couch. I pretended to read. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold the mug. The detective and a team of officers were outside and in nearby units. They told me to keep my phone on speaker. "Remember," the detective said, "you do not confront him. You do not try to be brave. You run to the safe room." The safe room was my bathroom. Solid door. No windows. Officers could get to it quickly. I nodded even though she couldn't see me. Hours passed. Nothing. I started to feel foolish. Maybe he wasn't watching. Maybe he was done. Then my door alarm beeped. A small sound, but it cut through everything. I sat up. On the camera screen, I saw the front door handle move. Slowly, the lock turned. My breath stopped. No force, no struggle. He had a key. The door opened. A figure stepped inside. Hoodie. Mask. He closed the door behind him. I didn't move. I couldn't. The detective's voice was in my ear. "Go. Now." I dropped the mug. It shattered. The sound was loud. The figure paused. I ran. I sprinted to the bathroom and slammed the door, locking it. I crouched on the floor, phone pressed to my ear. I could hear him moving through the apartment. Slow steps. A pause. Then his voice, close. "I don't like games," he said. The bathroom door rattled as he tried the handle. I stayed silent, tears streaming down my face. The detective was shouting commands to officers. I could hear muffled voices through the walls. The bathroom door shook again, then a loud crash. He was hitting it. The door frame groaned. My body curled tight, like I could make myself smaller than fear. Then more noises, running footsteps, shouted commands. The door stopped shaking. I heard him moving away. A thud. Another thud. Someone yelling, then a sharp, frantic sound like a struggle. I covered my mouth to keep from screaming. The detective's voice was steady now. "Stay in the bathroom," she said. Stay. Minutes passed. Then a knock. Police, a voice said. I opened the door slowly. The living room was a mess. My shattered mug was scattered on the floor. The couch cushions were pulled off. In the entryway, officers were standing over a man pinned to the floor. His mask was off. His face was ordinary. That's what shocked me the most. He wasn't some scarred stranger. He wasn't a monster in the way people imagine monsters. He looked like someone you'd see in line at a store. Someone you'd forget the second you walked away. His eyes were wide, not with fear, but with anger, like he couldn't believe he'd been stopped. When he saw me, he smiled. It wasn't the carved smile. It was real. You still don't understand, he said. An officer pressed his head down harder. The detective stepped forward. She looked exhausted. We have him, she said. I stared at him. My whole body shook. Who are you? I managed. He laughed softly. You never looked, he said. The detective pulled me back. Don't talk to him, she said. They took him away in handcuffs. They searched his pockets and found keys, including one to my old apartment and one to my new place. They found a small knife. They found a folded note. The detective opened it with gloves. Her face tightened. She didn't show it to me right away. What is it? I asked. She hesitated, then handed it over. It was blank. On the back, in the same neat handwriting as the others, there was one line. You won't sleep now. I dropped it. The case didn't end when they arrested him. People think that's how it works. They think there's a moment where the villain is caught and the survivor breathes again. But the night he was arrested didn't erase what happened. Mark was still dead. My mother was still dead. Carlos still had scars. Lauren still woke up crying sometimes. And me? I still looked over my shoulder. The detective later told me who he was. He'd lived in my old building for a while, in a unit on the first floor. I'd never noticed him. He'd moved out before the notes started. He'd worked a job that gave him access to buildings, keys, information. He'd watched me for months. He'd followed me. He'd listened. The police found a storage unit rented under a fake name. Inside were things: copies of my work schedule, photos of me from different angles, lists of my friends' names, notes about my habits. They found items taken from victims, souvenirs that made my skin crawl. He'd been building a private world where I existed for him. In court, he tried to stare at me. He tried to make me look away. I didn't. Not because I was brave, because I was tired. He was convicted. He was sent away. People congratulated me. They said I was strong. They said it was over. Sometimes when someone says it's over, you want to believe them. But I still wake up with my heart racing, sure I heard something. I still double-check locks. I still avoid windows at night. I still can't stand the sound of a door chain sliding. Sometimes I imagine him somewhere behind walls, still smiling, still believing he owns pieces of my mind. I don't know if that ever goes away. What I do know is this: before him, I lived without thinking about how thin the line is between ordinary and ruined. Now I know, and I carry it in my body like a second skin. I keep moving anyway, not because I feel safe, because if I stop, then he wins something he didn't earn. I won't give him that.